You are listening to Overwatch League Network, the podcast with Deadeye on all the latest Overwatch League news and information. The show with Tactical Visor on all of the statistics and analysis. Here are your hosts, Booger and Tanura.
And now we're ready. What's up and welcome to the new episode of Overwatch League Network. Here to talk about some rumors around the Overwatch League, say goodbye to some of our teams for the season, preview the rest of the playoffs, and some awards going out tonight. Got a jam-packed show ready, but before we jump into all of that, I'm going to introduce our host, and you got me, Booger, and my co-host, Nura, coming to you live on this Monday night, getting ready to talk about Overwatch League. But before we get that started, Nura, how's it been going? We ain't talked since last recording. It's been a while. How's your week going?
Yeah, I mean, there's some reasons why I haven't been online as much as I. So I'm working a lot. I think I said this last time. My tire popped like Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe it was Friday. I don't remember. Yeah, it popped Friday, and then so I was I was gonna get new tires for Saturday, right? And so they popped Friday when I was gonna get new tires Saturday. So I got new tires Saturday anyway, but I lost a whole bunch of work. And then come Sunday, I go out and my bumper's now popping out, and the undercarriage that like helps from hitting the bottom of a lot of things is also just falling and dragging on the ground. So I have to get that fixed now. Other than that, it's been good. Just sadiators over here. Other than that, it's been a solid time. How about you?
For sure, dude. Car troubles are the worst. I hate that for you. But yeah, no, I had a pretty busy week. Was working a ton. We had to do a ton of extra hours for the holiday weekend, which didn't turn out to be too much. And now, I watched as much Overwatch League as I could. There was a little bit of it I didn't get around to yet. But I think I'm pretty up to date, ready going into this weekend, which, this is getting to be, really crunch time. Like, by the end of this next weekend, we're going to know who's going to our grand finals, which we're going to have a few weeks in between. So that should be pretty interesting. Got some time for with a couple weeks off, I can't even imagine how strategies are going to change over this time and everything. But that's a lot of speculation moving forward too. We can get into that actually probably next week. But so, Anura, you brought this link to me that I just seen earlier today, a report of Shockwave is possibly going to be a free agent in this upcoming Overwatch League offseason. Which Shockwave, he was not added with the Titans with the original six. He was like their seventh person they added, and they really didn't have very much success at all until he joined the team. He definitely has been like the high point of the Titans, which, I mean, they could win Dumpster Fire of the Year award. Like, the Titans really, they started off this season with a rocky start. So, what do you think about this? Like, specifically, do you think the Titans are going to try to actually hold on to him in this offseason? Or do you see any other teams that might got eyes for Shockwave?
Oh, I was not expecting him to be a free agent. This is the most interesting thing, I think. It's the start of the offseason. This is the first big name. If this is even happening, as in, yes, it's reported as he is a free agent. That does not mean he's already in negotiations with Vancouver Titans and how they're going to work. But this guy's not going to be cheap. He's not. I thought maybe they had a 1+1 with him so they can keep him for another year on the contract he has. But that's not the case anymore. This turns into the highest bidder, unless he wants to stay with his previous Vancouver squad, which I think he's going to be changing up this offseason anyway. Now that Flubby has full control on the roster and can really bring this team to a what he wants, because he can do a whole bunch of open scrims, closed scrims. I don't know if Vancouver's going budget next year. I don't know what they're doing after the big expenditure on the former runaway players. So it's very interesting. Who would he be going to if Vancouver cannot keep a hold of him?
I don't even know.
That I mean, there's a few answers. It depends. I could see if Dallas needs.
Ooh.
Yeah, Dallas is a big one
That's
because
a-
he's
that
kind of
is-
a flex. He's not exactly a hit scan. He has a lot of hit scan, but he plays the Echo really well. Dallas is one. I'll put Houston out there because we don't know
Dude,
what the contracts are with Linkser or Dante. That's another one that they could put their money on Shockwave, and I think that could actually work out well for them. Another one, Toronto Defiant could go in on it.
That's a good one.
I mean,
Okay.
who knows? Maybe Shock was like, "Hey, he looks good. You might put him in."
I could definitely. Okay, just imagine how scary a Shockwave Bird Ring DPS line would be. They got a little bit of hero overlap for sure, but with the meta right
See, I don't think we're gonna do that.
yeah, because I mean, you got.
I think Kevster's basically Shockwave.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Yeah, that's. I don't mind. I wouldn't mind having Shockwave on my team at all. But
Yeah, he's definitely gonna be a pretty fair addition to no matter what team he joins, because he literally joined that Titans team that looked like they had no hope and got them a couple wins. And it wasn't just him; it was the whole team meshing together, and all that good stuff. But definitely someone to keep your eyes on too. I was kind of like you. I kind of figured that, with the way the Titans did, they would do a 1+1. But I guess maybe like emergency, we just need some people in the league. They would just get in whatever contracts they could do whatever.
right.
So we'll have to see where he decides to go, because regardless, it's going to be pretty interesting. But that's pretty much all the news we have about going around the league. But now we're going to take some time to say goodbye to some of these Overwatch League teams. This week, we saw a bunch of teams say goodbye to their season, and they're not going to be with us anymore going forward in 2020 Overwatch League. And, I'm going to go ahead and let you start off. Say a few words about the first team to leave the league this season.
The London Spitfire. I don't know what you guys would call them this year. Shitfire. Whatever you want. I mean, coming into this year, sure, you didn't have high expectations, but they looked good for a bit. They looked solid. They had a good run. They beat some teams that you didn't think they were going to, and then they shit the bed again. I mean, I was screaming Krillin's name. Krillin will fuck in 2020. He didn't. It was bad. Not to say that this wasn't a complete failure. You didn't have high expectations for this team for a reason. These were a whole bunch of names that you did not know before, and now you do. And I feel like some of them will come back and some of them won't. I mean, Glister's a high prospect. I think he's been playing really well compared to his team. Same thing with Bernard. I mean, you have J-Mac, who has had his off games with some really on games. Hailey hasn't looked the worst. I'm not going to talk about Fuse. Sanguinar, huge pickup for this team. These are big players that you can either try to build around or trade them off. I don't know what they want, but this is it. This is the end. It was a run. We'll say that. You lost to Chengdu and then the playoffs. I don't know what to say. Like, good luck next season.
And then this next team we're saying goodbye to is the Chengdu Hunters. Team that's kind of personally kind of special to me. As a Wrecking Ball main, I always look towards the Hunters to justify my wild picks on the ladder of playing Wrecking Ball no matter the situation. And, it didn't work out too far for them. They got that first win against London that might have been a surprise to some people. They just weren't going to be able to take it to New York, not this year. So, I don't know. We thought the Hunters coming in with leave would come in and be spectacular this year, but instead they're leaving the playoffs early.
Yeah, and I think the next team we can talk about is the Hangzhou Spark. Man, this team was interesting. They signed some really interesting players. I mean, they were looking pretty mediocre, if not lackluster, and then they brought in people like QOQ and Architect, and they started to look high again. Like they had a really good um, showing, and then they kind of just fell back down. You saw a lot less IDK. They brought in more Mika, and they showed what Assassin can do sometimes. I mean, I think one person we do need to talk about is Godsby's performance over this year has actually been really improved from previous, but they just weren't to the level they were last year. Like Yushui looked invisible. Sure, he was playing Arista most of the time, but he just wasn't there as dominant as he was in the previous season. I don't think this team needs as much changes as you would assume after losing to the Seoul Dynasty in the playoffs. I feel like this just wasn't their season, and I don't know what they need to change, but I feel like a few pickups and maybe a few drops can really bring this team together. Uh, I mean, they I don't know what else to say about Spark.
They
They were
should be good.
never
They just should be
they should
good.
be good. Yeah, they should be good, and they're not there, which is fine. Like you're in the Asian bracket, that's a hard one. Someone has to be sixth place. I just thought it was gonna be Seoul.
Yeah. Moving on, another team we're saying goodbye to this weekend is the Toronto Defiant, who seem to be this season. We had pretty high expectations for them, and then they just dropped. And when we thought that Toronto was done for, they came out with a hot win streak. And was it the Summer Showdown? And now we're looking at the Toronto Defiant like, where did it all go wrong? Are you only good doing Genji meta? Toronto, they signed all the cool guys, but they didn't sign the winning team, I guess. I don't know. Toronto definitely leaves me scratching my head. But they really went out in Toronto fashion, pushing it to map 5 and not sealing the deal. So, I don't know. I guess we'll leave you to talk about the ultimate dumpster fire, Anura.
The Boston Uprising, who had a bit of an uprising, I'd say, after a lackluster, terrible, absolutely horrible, no good, bad day season. They came out and they really showed that sometimes they could be all right, and with their showing. But overall, how can you look at this team and be like, this was a success this year? They
I'm
have 7 players. They have 7 players, and I feel like a lot of them aren't going to be staying after this.
hopefully.
Let's hope. Let's be honest. I do want to rebuild, and I swear I can't say like anything good other than if you don't blow up this team and rebuild next season, I don't know what you're doing. There's no way this team's going to be really good next year.
Also,
They
oh, go ahead.
are so negative, and like they have high highs, and their high highs they can maybe win a game against Houston Outlaws, but their lows are so low. You can't you can't you can't
Okay,
redeem that.
so we're talking about a
Yeah, you want to
Boston
say?
Uprising that has won 3 games. The only teams they beat this year was mine and Anura's favorite teams, the Outlaws and the Gladiators. Like, how does that happen to us? Like, the worst luck. It's like the Boston Uprising is the Overwatch League Network party poopers because they beat our teams when they really shouldn't. But moving on to another.
Well,
Okay.
uh huh.
Moving on.
I'm gonna say Boston did look good in the playoffs. They did. They did. They looked really good. And I was very surprised by that. But that's a one-off. Don't put that as like the whole thing.
They got lucky. But then, next team we got to say goodbye to is the Dallas Fuel, who thought that they really had it this year, signing Decay in the offseason. And then, well, we know what happened there. So, Dallas is done for. And if I'm to, to add salt to the wound here, we had Dallas getting 3-0'd to be put out of the tournament by the Washington Justice with Decay. We can talk more about that controversy later, but let's just wish Dallas a good farewell. They're coming into next season with some new coaching staff, and hopefully a revitalized organization. Maybe.
Maybe this year they can beat Fuel. Maybe this year Dallas can beat Fuel.
Maybe this year, the next season,
Or maybe
4,
next year. This year they did not.
Yeah,
At
season
all.
4
They lost.
is the year that Dallas can beat the Fuel. And then you want to go ahead. This might be the saddest goodbye. This next one.
Paris Eternal. Man, you guys were so
Too
good.
soon.
Oh, you guys were so good. What? It really sucks seeing a team that meshes so well together. I mean, you saw the rise of Ben Best, the continuation of Soon, because he did not look that good last season. I mean, you brought in Sparkle and Exy, two of my favorite rookies to come in this year. You revitalized No Smite. Nico looked good.
Don't leave
You
out
brought in
Hamid.
this. Okay, yes, I'm not forgetting about Hamben. Let me continue. You brought in this great rookie with Fielder, who's a ping warrior. You got FD God, Belucio God, and then you have Hanbin, probably one of the best flex tanks I've ever seen. Just come into the league. I honestly, this team has so much potential, and this just wasn't their meta. I don't know what they need to change because they were so good this year, but I don't think it's a lot. This team could have won the league if it was the right meta. They are there. It just early send off based off of just not a good meta for them. They lost to Atlanta, and then they got to play Washington Justice, and really kind of fell flat. This wasn't their meta, and it could show. This is the first time I've seen Hanbin not really show up because this wasn't really a good meta for him. I mean, other than that, this team is fantastic. It sucks to see him go out so early. They deserve so much more than what they got. But at least they won a what are they called? The cups. They won a cup. That's really amazing. So I mean, it's not like a goodbye forever. It's a see you soon. So see you soon, parents.
And then now that brings us to our saddest goodbyes of the tournament, and that's the Houston Outlaws. If there was a team that left too soon, it had to be the Outlaws. Nobody thought Boston would beat them, but
95% thought Houston would win.
Yeah, but let's run Farah into double hit scan. That's like a winning plan, I think I read it on Reddit. It's probably a good idea, but this preseason, I had pretty high expectations for Houston, bringing in the likes of Meko and Hydration and a new support line, which was what we were begging for last year. And it just wasn't enough. I don't know. I thought this could really be the Houston Outlaws year. I thought we'd been watching Linkser struggle with stage fright, and then getting him into online play was just going to be something magical. But instead, the Houston Outlaws fall flat again. But my hopes are still up, because let's look at the bottom teams from the past few years. They all get hot in the next year or two. We saw Shanghai terrible. Now they're good. We saw Florida being terrible. Now they're good. So
Boston Uprising.
Boston doesn't count.
Yeah.
They're
okay.
Boston. That's my favorite team to hate, so they don't count. They're not a real Overwatch league.
That's fair. I'll give you some hope. Yeah, you guys are gonna be great next year.
There's a chance. And even halfway through the season, when Muma got boomed out of the starting lineup and they replaced him with Hydration, my hope kind of got revitalized, and I thought we could have another good finish to the season. But this is how it ended to the Gladiators, or to the Uprising. Now we move on to the Gladiators. In an era,
man, this team, I love this team. I really do love this team. I mean, this is the team that brought out LH Cloudy, Ryan Strats. Insane play. I mean, you brought in Birdring, who everyone was like, you shouldn't have. This guy is inconsistent. Became the most consistent player on the team. The finished backline of Big Use and Shaz was not as consistent this year. But, I mean, you still got to love him. We brought in Space and OGE, a really solid, mechanically well-placed tank line. And then, I mean, you brought in the rookies, Kevzer, Mirror, Jaru. I think, did I say anything about Bishi's just a king? But overall, like this season, for some reason, the Gladiators could not close. We won against the Shock once, and then we got dominated by Seoul, and Seoul left. Uh, every cup, we just did not look as strong. I think we won maybe one game during a cup. Like it just wasn't our year. Something about it just was not. We weren't clutch. We weren't ready. We weren't as active. You've got to wonder like what happened. Why isn't this team as clutch as before? Why can't they be a top team? And I don't know. Was it the coaching staff? Who knows? Overall, this was a failure of a year, but next year you have a solid core. You can bring back any of the. I think you can bring back 7 of these players, add a few more, and this could be a really good roster. And you have the puzzle pieces here. Just rebuild and go again next year. This was a really rushed roster compared to other ones with a late start because of a transaction with Kroenke and Sentinels. And so you built this team. You did spend a lot of money on it. I'm not gonna lie there, but you built this team with less time than other people, and you made it to where we were pretty good. We just weren't there yet. So hopefully, here's next year. If next year we don't make it, I think it's a failure. But right now, this is just the beginning.
Okay. And that wraps up our teams to say goodbye to. Now we'll go ahead and quit looking backwards and start looking forward into the games that we have this coming weekend. We'll start with the NA division. We have the 2 teams remaining in the winners bracket is the Philadelphia Fusion and the San Francisco Shock. So I guess that's not really a big surprise there for anybody. Top 2 teams are the last 2 in the winners bracket, so that's going to be pretty interesting game. That game will not be taking place until Saturday at 3 p.m. Kind of going a little out of chronological order here. But we'll have Saturday at 3 p.m. We have the Shock versus Philly Fusion facing off. These look like the 2 best NA teams ever since the division split this season. And, it makes sense. These are the 2 teams in the winning division, the winning winners bracket. So what do you think, Anura, coming up? You give the edge to Philly or the edge to the Shock? Because the last little mini tournament they had, we saw the Shock beat Philly pretty close, and then the next week in regular season, we saw Philly come back and stomp on them. So like in recent weeks, these teams are 1-1, but it's a new meta. Everything's different. Like, what do you think about this matchup?
Say if we continued the bracket from Sunday to Monday and Philly and Shock were playing, 100% Philly. 100, no doubt Philly would win this. Now that there's an extra week, it brings a whole bunch of extra problems. Shock now has tape on Philly, and they have a week to practice the meta that they think is perfect. You don't want to give Shock more time. You don't. This is not a good idea. With that being said, I still have Philly winning this. For the sole reason of they've looked so clean. They destroyed the Los Angeles Gladiators, and then they went off and destroyed the LA Valiant, who both, Gladiators looked all right, and then Valiant looked really good against Florida. They 3-0'd no matter what, like absolutely dominated. This is Philly's meta.
Yeah,
I'm putting Philly above Shock right now.
I don't disagree.
But that's with a really big asterisk that Shock will not figure out this meta and dominate next week. Shock. It's a Shock. Like this still is like for me is like a 60-40 after this week. If it was literally today, I would put Philly 70-30, 75-25 against Shock. This is a different story.
See, I think whether it happened today or it happens this weekend, I don't think we can give the edge much more than 51-49, maybe 52-48. Like these teams are so close together. And here's one thing that I do look at though, like you mentioned, Philly 3-0'd Gladiators and the Valiant to get here so far, where we saw the Shock have to reverse sweep the Washington Justice. They went down 2-0 against them, and then the Shock dropped the map to Reign as well for 3-1, and that game was pretty close. Like, did you watch the Shock Reign game?
I watched both of these games.
Yeah,
so my main thing is the difference between right now Philly and Shock is that Shock look losable. They look like they can lose games. Especially that Washington Justice San Francisco Shock. A lot of people are like, they shouldn't have won that. Washington kind of choked. They should have been a 3-0 Washington. I'm gonna be honest. And big. It's wild. Which, oh my God, we're not even gonna get into Washington. But we're not. Well, not yet. Not yet. But right now, we're not gonna. They've been playing fantastic. It's not even just Decay. I'll tell you that. I think Decay is the light. But I don't think it's just Decay. But I mean, you looked at the Shock game. I do think Atlanta got a weird win, but Shock, if they're as dominant as they were last year, they were 3-0ing everyone.
Yep.
After they lost to Atlanta, of course, but they were 3-0ing or 4-0ing everyone. I don't remember how the playoffs worked, but I mean, this isn't the same dominant Shock. They don't have their Zarya player in Sinatra. They don't have Architect to come in on Bastion and play in the Raptors. This is not the same team. They've lost a lot of good players that made them the way they are. This is a weaker Shock than it was last year. I'll tell you that.
For sure.
It's still Shock. Still Shock. You don't mess with them. And to be honest, I don't see any other teams but these two making it unless Washington comes through. But we're not gonna.
Yeah. Here's another thing. If we remember, Choi Oben can be a madman on the Roadhog, and I don't think that he was up to his potential in either of the games this weekend. Like, I don't think we were.
Choi was talking about how he got destroyed by Janu.
Yeah, like he definitely was not playing like the same. Like, I don't know if maybe he had an off weekend or everybody else caught up with him. But last year when we saw him playing some Roadhog before Sigma got introduced, he was like. I would have argued he was probably the best Roadhog player, period. But now we can't say that. Like, so I don't know. Maybe he had an off weekend. Maybe that's going to open his eyes and he's going to look to do things differently.
Sam is the best Roadhog player.
You think so?
No.
I was going to say.
Sam is not the best Roadhog player. I was just bringing him back up because I think he's funny.
Yeah.
I miss him. I think he had some potential at the end of the year, but that was last year. We're not going to talk about him anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, this Philly Shock game, that's just one that everybody's going to have to watch. Like, just watch it because otherwise...
Why wouldn't you?
I mean, I don't know.
Why? You don't think this is entertaining enough, number one?
I try to watch every game that I'm off work for.
But
I know some people listen
This is the game to watch.
I know some people that listen to the podcast don't get time to watch every game and can only pick one or two, so, like, that's definitely one to watch. But now, let's go ahead and we'll talk about our losers bracket. We've got the two games happening in the losers bracket. We have the Atlanta Reign facing off against the Florida Mayhem and the Los Angeles Valiant facing off against the Washington How Did You Get Here Justice. Jeez. Who would have thought that we would be this weekend we'd be talking about the Washington Justice? We said it was 50-50 if they beat the Titans. But they stomped on the Titans. They stomped on the Fuel. And then they come and push San Francisco, like we alluded to earlier. They went up 2-0 against San Francisco. And, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. One thing I want to bring up. When we were talking about the controversy of the Justice signing Decay to replace Lawlish, who hadn't played literally all season. They signed him last year. He never even made it to be part of the team. And one of the comments I made during that whole controversy when we talked about it, it was like, it'd be one thing if they signed Decay to come in and play tank for Lawlish, but he's a DPS player. How is he replacing their tank? And what do you know? Tournament comes, he's playing tank and straight carrying.
No, he's playing DPS. Well, that's damage. That's a damage hero. I don't care what you're saying. They're playing quad DPS.
Technically, he's playing...
Technically, it's a tank.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is what he played for the Gladiators and Goats. So he's not just unskilled when it comes to Zarya. In fact, he's kind of hard carrying. Yeah, but I just didn't... when they signed him, I was just like, what if they really did bring Decay to play tank? And they did. So I don't know. I think this adds.
I mean,
another
I don't think
layer
they
to the
expected
controversy.
this.
You don't think that they signed him thinking he was going to play tank? You think it just happened that way?
They signed him before the patch came out for what is it?
True.
Whatever. Yeah, the Roadhog and
But was
the
it
shield
an
nerfs.
experimental yet, or maybe they kind of?
I don't think it was. I don't remember exactly,
Me
to be
neither.
honest, but
But
I don't
still,
think it was.
The fact that Decay is actually replacing Lolish, which is he really? He's more of replacing Roar, but like the fact that he's actually coming in to play tank just adds another layer to that controversy, in my opinion. But
Well, right now it's what's done is done. I'm not going to worry about it
Yeah,
anymore.
true.
I think it's bullshit, but I'm not going to. What I do want to talk about is the rest of the Washington,
they are
because right now they're also popping off. Who would have thought if you just dropped a roar and didn't play him that the team would look good?
I don't
sorry.
know if it's just that though.
Yeah. No, well, no, it's not. Janu looks really good on Hog.
True.
Arc is on Mercy, which he's really strong at.
Mhm.
Aim God is just popping off right now. He's looking amazing. Stitch, I didn't think he's gonna play this well ever in his career again. He's looking like a resurgent. Like he's looking like it's a new life. Tuba's popping off as well. Like this team is really good together right now. And I think it's on the back of Decay's shot calling, which I don't think he felt safe to do on a team like Dallas Fuel where he wasn't speaking full Korean all the time. Whether you think that Decay held scrims or not, I don't know. That's a whole different controversy that we'll probably bring up in the offseason. But right now, Washington's looking like a really good team. Like they're looking
so good.
For me right now, they're top 3. 100% top 3. Like I think it's Philly, and it's a toss up between Shock and Washington, which is wild for me right now.
Yeah.
But with that being said, they have a week to prepare for this. Valiant has a week to prepare for Washington Justice, Zarya Hog. And I don't think they can switch off that.
Yeah.
Like this is they're locked into Zarya Hog. How else are they going to play this well?
Okay, but
You don't.
you're completely right on. But the thing is like, dude, look what they did to Paris. Like I thought that, oh man, this Washington run's been nice, but they're not going to stand
Look what
up to
Atlanta
Paris.
did to Paris.
But yeah, but
Look
okay,
what Atlanta did to Paris.
but we expect Atlanta to be better than Washington.
No,
Not now for sure. You're right.
yeah.
But like last week,
After seeing Washington for a day, I think Atlanta's really getting.
But last week we would have
lucky.
said that Atlanta was better than Washington. Like I would.
Well, last week I said that Vancouver is
sure.
going to beat.
Exactly.
That was not the case.
It's so crazy. Like,
That's not the case.
like,
What happened was the case that this is my team. We're going to play it the way I like it, and it's working.
and you know it might be the perfect thing for the Justice to do, because I'm curious like how much of it is just like, okay, Decay is shot calling, he's making the team that much better, but I wonder how much of it is like a mental shift within the team, them thinking like, oh, we can actually do this. We're not the same team that earned the 12th seed. Like they're not that team. So like it could be a mental thing. Like Aim God, we know that he's streaky.
Yeah.
We know he's been really good, but we've seen him fall flat. Maybe this is like, oh, if I actually play good, the rest of the team will too, and we're gonna stomp them. So like it can be like a mental thing, and just knowing that they have that firepower coming in on their side can make the rest of the team better.
Right. I think Washington's had some highs like as of late. It wasn't like the high. It's not like this high, but they've looked decent. Like they've looked really good in some metas. I think the Genji meta was the last one where they had to put Tuba. Like Tuba was carrying them on their backs. But now they have a star player that people have to focus with Decay, because if you don't focus Decay, you're going to die. And then they have now Stitch and Tuba are free, absolutely free, and the backline's not even getting touched, because you have to focus on this Zarya the whole time. He's getting hard pocketed. It's such a good way to play for this team. It's just like put resources in Decay. Decay will pop off, and if Decay's doing all this stuff, they can let their DPS just run free. It's such a good meta for them. Now, Shock did figure it out and was able to reverse sweep, but that's in San Francisco Shock, and they barely did it. This wasn't like a stomp after the first two maps. This was a really close game.
Yeah, right on. Like
You're gonna have to prepare for this. I don't know if Valiant's gonna be able to do it yet. I think their coaching staff's competent enough to figure it out, but I don't know if the players can reach the skill level of the Zarya, of what the supports are playing on Washington Justice. Some of the reses Arc is getting off are insane,
truly,
absolutely insane. So I mean, this is I have to give the Washington just how well they're playing, but I also think Valiant could do this, 100%. But that's not the matchup I want. I want Valiant versus Florida again, so badly.
Yeah,
I want that so badly.
We go ahead and throw back to that. The Florida Mayhem took on the Valiant this weekend, and it went to map 5. Like, those teams are kind of organically becoming rivals. Like, we don't see a Florida versus Valiant game that is not just like hype. They went to map 5. I don't know. I'll look the stat up later.
That day was hype. That day was so hype.
It was though. Like, we had
we had a really close 3-0 with Gladiators and Fusion. It was really close 3-0. It was close.
But then we had 3 map 5.
And then we had 3 map 5.
Yeah, that was insane. That whole day. But the Florida versus Valiant, like, those teams are so close to being equal in power level that it's absolutely insane. And then they both ended up here in the losers bracket. And
yes,
it is very likely that we see the loser bracket playoffs to be Florida versus Valiant. Like, that really could be.
One side, I think it could have happened. The other side, I'm very, very iffy about. Now, Florida learned a lot from the Valiant game, and they switched Jockey and BQB off. They're playing they played Sombra Reaper, which is really popular comp, and they switched Jockey and BQB's roles against the Gladiators, and they absolutely rolled. They looked really, really good with the switch roster compared to Valiant before. So I'm excited to see what Atlanta can do to stop that. Because for me right now, although Atlanta has been making it this far, I don't know how good they are. Like, who did they beat? They beat the Boston Uprising 3-1. Good job. Amazing. But let's be honest, this was probably the best Uprising looked, and it was good against it's good against Houston Outlaws. I don't want to shit too much because I know
it's deserved.
But I mean, like, it was a really good game for Boston. With Houston Outlaws, they completely countered, but Atlanta just beat them out straight with mechanics because they're so mechanically gifted. And then they went off to play the Paris Eternal, which is not their meta at all. They were playing Sparkle and Sombra. Don't do that. You have Soon. I don't understand that, but I'm just saying they didn't have like the hardest schedule, and then they played Shock where they'd get a map, but it still wasn't that close. I think Shock had them the whole time. Meanwhile, Florida had a really close game against Valiant, and then they went off, and then they destroyed the Gladiators, which, I mean, like, it's just kind of unfair that we didn't get to play Florida when they had their previous DPS. I think that's kind of weird that they switched it for us and not for Valiant. But overall, Mayhem's looking good. Mayhem's looking really good. I have Mayhem over Atlanta on this one. And then for me right now, I do have Washington over Valiant because I just don't know how you're going to counter that in such a short amount of time. But I also would not be surprised to see this Florida versus Valiant back in the losers bracket. Is it semifinals? Yeah, loser bracket semifinals.
Yeah, okay. So here's the way I'm looking at it. When I look at these 4 teams in the loser bracket, one of these teams is going to have to play the loser of the Shock Fusion game. And the only team I don't think will make it that far is Atlanta Reign. If Florida, Valiant, or Justice are facing off against the Shock later this weekend, or is that next week? Either way, whenever they face the loser of that game, I fully anticipate it to, be one of those 3 teams. And I don't want to count Atlanta out. Okay, so we would have to see the Atlanta Reign beat the Florida Mayhem and then turn around and beat the Valiant or the Justice. And, like, they beat Paris Eternal. And
they've looked stronger with Popo.
Strong, but I just don't think that they're going to be pushing it that far. Like, Atlanta...
First of all, this is amazing for them.
What's that?
Atlanta has looked really strong later in this year because they barely lost to Paris Eternal played.
They
They went off to beat them.
Paris. Yeah, no, that's
They beat Paris this time, yes, but like I think it was last
Yeah.
week they played.
and it was close.
It was a really close. It was a map 5, and they looked really good. But previous to that, Atlanta has not beat any top teams at all.
Yeah, I just don't.
They've been
see it.
dumpstered by teams above them, and they've dumpstered team below. This is different. They're playing top teams now. They're gonna have to step up their game again. I think Sharp was a really good addition this week for them. I don't know why they never played him before. It's an enigma, but he looks really good. In my opinion, he looks pretty good these last few games. But you're going against BQB Yaki, and I feel like Fate and Gargoyle are really good as well. The only question mark for Florida right now I have is Chris, and he actually has been looking really solid on Lucio as of late. So I don't even know Florida's weakness right now versus Atlanta. You know, I feel like Florida has the
So
upper on that.
here we've been talking about the North American for a minute. We need to get on the Asian. So final question: who do you see as the team that's going to play against the loser of the Fusion Shock game?
Okay, so I have Florida and I have Washington going forward.
And then the winner of that.
I might have Washington.
You think Washington? Okay. See, I kind of
Because
feel a little different. I think that Valiant has a really strong chance of being the team that's going to play that loser final.
That's fair.
It really is.
For me, here's where I'm at. I just want to talk about it real quick. Valiant looked not that strong against Fusion. Florida looked upgraded after their loss to Valiant. I cannot, in my right mind, put Valiant above Florida again.
See,
the rematch, Florida won it more. I can guarantee you that.
I don't know.
Florida looked better with their DPS switched, as they didn't have before, and I don't see Valiant making past Florida again. In my personal opinion,
I don't know. They got the rivalry aspect where anything could happen when they face off, but I don't know. You just can't really count out a player like KSP. Yeah, Valiant got like shit on by Fusion, but what team wouldn't right now? The Shock. That's pretty much it. Pretty much anybody that plays Fusion's gonna get whooped up on. So I don't really take too much into that. And then,
I'm just saying that they weren't as strong in this meta as I think you can lose it. Like
any of them could win.
Philly can definitely lose a map, right? And they played both LA teams, they couldn't do it. I think that Florida's looked improved. I know this is probably people will be like, "Well, this is biased because you're a Gladiators fan." Dude, they switched things up after their loss, and they've looked better. They've looked better, and that's where I'm like, if it was this close, or it could have gone either way, for the Florida Mayhem versus Valiant game, and if Valiant can improve, which they have to, they have to custom tailor their strats against Washington Justice, and then go off to play Florida after that. It's going to be a different game for both of these teams, but for right now, I think Florida could cruise past Atlanta, and then have to play a Valiant that I don't think they're going to be that strong on a Hog Zarya meta. I don't think with the improvements Florida have made in just a day that it's going to be the same game. But who knows? I mean, it could actually go Valiant's way as well because we have a week. It's a week. They have a week to practice this meta that was undefined before and now looking way more defined. So at the end of the day, it is like a he said, she said. But for me, I have Washington going the further.
For sure. Now, look, let's go ahead and get into this Asian bracket now. So we got the two remaining teams in the winners bracket. We got the Shanghai Dragons and the Seoul Dynasty, who some of us thought Seoul weren't going to play very good going into this, but they have not dropped a map. So Seoul's been playing pretty hot, which we know when they're hot, they're hot. When they're not, they're not. But coming up against the Shanghai Dragons, I believe that first little mini tournament we had was when we had that epic, like, instant classic of a series that was the Dynasty versus the Dragons, the one that went to like a map 7. So these teams have some history. Since then, the Dragons have dunked on Seoul twice, 2 or 3 times now. They've dunked on them since then. But, you know, things are different when it comes to a tournament. And Seoul's looking, like, really good right now. So, I mean, not to say Shanghai isn't, because Shanghai is. So we've got that is a, you know, pretty hype game for the winter finals. And what you think about it?
Seoul's gonna get dumpstered. This is I want to say this not because Shanghai is so good and Seoul's so bad, you know, because Seoul's looked really good. They 3-0 twice. I'm gonna give it back to the week. We saw 2 weeks ago Seoul play amazing 3-0 kids on this record, and then next week comes back and they looked a lot weaker. I feel like they're really good at finding the meta and playing it really well, and then they go back and they just get dumpstered on later. So for me right now, like I think Shanghai will only get better at this meta, and I don't know how well Seoul will adapt past this week on this meta. Let's see. So yeah, they 3-0'd New York and in London that week, and then the next week,
or they
Seoul got 3-0'd by Spark, and then they got this is a while ago. This is like the last time they played. They got 3-0'd by Spark, and I think they had a really close game with London. Yeah, they went 3-2 with London. So for me, this is definitely recency bias, but I can see a meta like where they don't improve and everyone else improves around them, and they don't show up as well as they did before. So I do have obviously I have Shanghai advancing because they just looked amazing this year, but I feel like this could also be trouble for Seoul after they made it this far, which is amazing, but who knows after that.
For sure. Like, if in my opinion, like in 2020, you don't bet against Shanghai. You just don't. They're so good this year, and they're not unbeatable, but like, I don't know. I could see this being a close, hard-fought game, but
yeah,
Dragon's just so strong, dude. They're so good right now.
I mean, either way, I see Dragons making it to the full-on.
Yeah, I don't see
playoffs.
a world where Dragons aren't, you know, finalists going to the Final Four. Like, I don't see a way it's not Dragons, and like, I'm really impressed by the way that Shanghai showed up. I did not get to watch the Spark game. I just seen some highlights, but then I got to watch Dynasty versus Charge, and like, I thought Charge were coming in strong. Remember last week we were talking about how strong Charge were going to be coming into this meta, and Seoul whooped them. So like, I don't know. Seoul's one of those crazy teams, but while we're talking about the Asian division, we're going to have to talk about the Hunters, who are no longer with us, but they beat the Spitfire, and then they went to map 5 with the New York XL. So the Hunters, you know, they were a little bit stronger in this meta, but just, I don't know, just not strong enough. So we're gonna that. Yeah.
I would have been absolutely distraught if New York lost there.
Dude, yeah, I would have been so shocked if New York lost to
my main thing is Chengdu already proved themselves with going map 5 against New York after a really good game against London. New York needs this.
They really do.
This is where I don't want to talk about Chengdu because right now they had a really bad season because I feel like the coaching staff didn't know what to do with this team, and they finally found a new coach and they're looking improved, and maybe they'll add a few players, maybe they won't. At the end of the day, they're still Chengdu. Like, what are you gonna do? You can't prepare for them.
You watch out for them next year for sure.
Right, but with New York, this is a make or break. They need these wins. They have been so bad in playoffs historically to where it's almost like this team's good. This team has a lot of good players. The fact that they haven't made playoffs is actually ridiculous. Like, not made playoffs, but done well in playoffs is absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, for sure.
New York needs to win against Guangzhou Charge, which is a hard game. And then they need to beat whoever loses the Shanghai Seoul game, which I want to say is Seoul, which I think is possible. I don't think Seoul's going to be that strong after this week. But with that being said, if they don't, I'm going to be honest, if they don't make it to the whatever the grand finals bracket playoffs, it's a failed season for them. Charge, it's like whatever. GG goes next. It's a weird year. You can rebuild some parts of the team and be fine. Seoul, it's like, man, we paid a lot of money for these players, but this is like the same thing as London. New York, this is literally like maybe the last time we're gonna see players like Mono, Jonak, Sabiobi together. You know, Libero, all these players that you've known and loved. Maybe Animo as well. Well, where it's like they might have to rebuild and be like, listen, this isn't working for some reason. This isn't working. They might sell off their players. I don't see them coming back as the same squad unless they go far. And I don't want New York to. I don't want New York to lose these players. I think they have such a good identity. I love this team. I want them to go far, but they have a long road to go after losing to Shanghai.
Oh yeah, see, like I remember watching season 1 of Overwatch League, and it was like, who can beat New York? Probably nobody. And then they didn't turn up in the playoffs. And then in season 3, they were like the solid, or yeah, the season 2, they were the solid like third place team. And now they're just kind of like third in Asia. Like it's been kind of a little bit of a decline. And I'm curious if maybe that decline's going to be taking the pressure off and make their like playoffs. Maybe they won't choke. I mean, they did lose to the Shanghai Dragons, so to come back and beat them would be, a monumentous task. But, we got to focus on this game right ahead of them, and that's the Guangzhou Charge, who is a really good team. So, like, we're down to the wire here. Like, there are 4 teams left in the Asian division, and I could see any combination of Shanghai and going to the Final Four. So, like...
Right. So I feel like with NA... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But with NA, it feels like it's going to be Philly or Shock, and maybe like an upset. But for this one, it's like literally Shanghai could be Charge, could be, it could be Charge, it could be Seoul, it could be New York. Like this is like up in the air for these 3 teams. And I feel like it's been like that with the Asian bracket for so long, where it's been Shanghai and,
I think this weekend we might get a solid word that it's going to be Shanghai and New York. Like, if New York come out and beat Charge, I think Shanghai and New York are the, Asian final 2. Like, that's just the way I'm looking at it. And, because, look...
If Seoul looks weak.
Even if they do look strong. Like, if New York can beat the Charge, then I think that they're able to beat...
Charge. If Seoul looks strong and New York has a close game against Charge, I mean, Charge just got 3-0'd by Seoul.
True.
So it's like this is still like it's still up in the air.
But I think a New York that beats the Charge is going to be able to beat Seoul even when Seoul's playing good. Like I you know what I'm saying? Like we're okay.
I don't. That's why I brought up the analogy of.
I don't know.
This is like a really hard thing.
But I'm still. I don't know. Here's here's secret time. When I was picking my favorite Overwatch League team, I had it narrowed down. It was either going to be New York or Houston. It's like New York because the blue, I love blue, or Houston.
You messed up that badly?
Yep, Houston because they had, like, at the time I was picking, they had the best, most prominent Junkrat player, and I was a Junkrat main. So I was like, yeah, that's going to be my team. I don't have to stick with the blue team. So yeah, no, I kind of messed up. But now I'm just like, man, New York, blue team, they might got the chance. They really, I don't know, like seeing
what kind of blue team?
It's not the same. It's not as good of a blue. Like, let's be honest.
You don't like the light blue?
It's not that I don't like it, but the New York blue shits on any of the other blues in the league. So I guess that's up for debate, but in my opinion, no. Anyways, so, we're not just talking about team colors. I think New York, especially with Jonak, who pretty much in this meta, he's going to be playing Ana or Zen, which are like his top 2 heroes. He can also play a pretty good Baptiste if they need him, but we really haven't seen that. So, Jonak on Zenyatta is what got him that season 1 MVP. So we might see like a madman be unleashed, especially if it like, because the support line, it's been kind of like, some teams run the Lucio Moria, some of them are running like a Mercy Zen. It's just like there's a lot of just different support duos out there. And in the game that New York played against the Hunters and the game against the Dragons, they had Jonak on Zen and Ana predominantly. And I think that's like where he can carry. And I kind of think they might have been messing up putting in Hotba over Bianca at times because I think Bianca might be the better option. What do you think?
So, I don't know. So, first of all, Hot Buzz Roadhog is actually really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm like, it's questionable, but I feel like it is the right move to put a better player in that position, unless the meta shifts. The meta might shift to where you might want to play Bianca.
For the
I don't
Zarya,
know
right?
exactly for the Zarya, for maybe Diva, Winston Dive, for whatever happens. Who knows? But I feel like if you're playing Roadhog, it is the first move to put in. You might want to put in. You might want to put on Bianca Hoppa. That might be that might be a thing.
it.
You might want to go with
Mm-hmm.
the Zarya Roadhog. Who knows? But I feel like if you're gonna play Roadhog, you need to put Hoppa in. He's that good on it. Sorry,
I kind of.
but
See, here's my
but
expectations for the New York tank line would have been Mono on the Winston and Bianca on the Zarya, and maybe even the Ball Zarya, because that's what if we watched Shanghai, they were playing predominantly Winston with Zarya, maybe a little bit of Winston with the Diva, and I think that Winston Zarya pick is shown to be kind of strong. So, and then it's also like if you're playing Winston Zarya, it transitions easy to Zarya Hog, which is good on the maps that Winston Zarya is not good on, so you don't really have to like lose your Zarya ult charge, I guess. I don't know. It's
right.
It's like maybe I'm just like partial to the Zarya play in this meta, but I definitely think that the New York looked better with Bianca than they have with Hotba. But at the same time, you bring
100%, yeah.
with the Hog. His Hog has been shown to be pretty crazy. Hotba is that hybrid. He was playing DPS / tank depending what the team needed on his last team. So seeing him
I was
play
on
Roadhog,
Philly season 1,
and with the Charge last year, when it was
I don't remember that one exactly.
Yeah, it was when they moved into playing like the triple
DPS ball.
Yeah, and they would.
Yeah, that was wild shit.
And they would have Hotba. Sometimes he'd be playing Hog. Sometimes he'd be playing the Tracers. I think I don't know. Either way, he's been a player that has played DPS and a tank quite a bit. So I think of him like the DPS tank hybrids. Those are the people that are good at Roadhog. So I would not be.
Right.
I don't know. I think New York has so many like good looks with their team that they can play good on. I think one of the hardest things for them right now is going to be selecting their DPS line because they're so stacked. It's like who do you even pick, dude? Like Nene is like God.
Well, they're stacked,
sometimes.
but also it feels like they make the wrong picks all the time.
Yep.
You're like, why aren't you playing this hero on? Like, sure, you can put in Sabiolbi for Tracer, and he looks amazing.
He's so good at Tracer and Sombra.
Right, but then, I mean, who was it who looked? Fitz looked better on Tracer in that matchup. Was it Fitz? I think it was Fitz.
Fleta.
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah. No,
Wait, was it Fleta? Have they even played? Yeah, no, it was Fleta. Fleta looked really good against. It was crazy, Sabiolbi. And then you're like, maybe we should put in Nene. Maybe Libero would be good in this meta. Maybe. Like, there's so many options for New York. I do want to move on for New York and talk about the sleeper pick that we really haven't been able to talk about a lot.
Let's go.
The Guangzhou Charge. This team could make it.
Good. They really should be super good right now.
They really could make it, and I feel like they're kind of being slept on right now. They had a really. What happened to my bracket? What the hell? It just like went away.
Oh,
but,
I thought you meant
right.
what happened because it was so unpredictable this weekend. There's a lot of people saying what happened.
Okay, yeah, honestly, yeah, but what did happen was Seoul. First of all, this happened last year where Seoul came out with a really good meta, and last time it was in play-ins with the Charge versus Seoul, and they brought Charge out of it. I think it was like they were playing a McCree and they just had a Nero strategy with Farah, which is almost like identical to this year, where they thought that they could play this Farah strategy with the Charge and Nero. I don't blame Nero for this. I don't think Nero was the problem. I think that Seoul just had a better strategy going in general, and they've actually looked really clean in the last meta. But if Charge can like rebuild what they're doing, and repurpose what they were doing to a whatever meta is going to come after this week, because I think it's going to change. I don't know what it's going to change into, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of counters and counters, and next thing you know, Torb's being played. But
yeah.
right, but like Charge has a legit chance. They're so strong, and this team could beat in a certain meta. They can beat both New York and Seoul. I don't want to put them out of this.
But I think I might have shown a little bit of my bias through this episode that now that Houston's gone, I think I'm rooting for New York to win it all. So, talking about Charge.
I don't see New York winning it all this year.
Yeah, I'm probably giving them the curse of death every time I want to, like, root for a team they get kicked out, so I probably shouldn't say
I think they could make it the playoffs.
But,
to be honest, here's where I'm at. I think that Shanghai's going to have really strong showing. I think Philly and Shock can have a really good strong showing. I don't know about the fourth person from Asia. I feel like they might be the weakest
link.
link.
It could be New York, and I don't know, man. That's who I'm rooting for the rest of this season, and that's just
fair. That's a good person to root for.
Just because I thought that they had it season 1.
Maybe from next year, the year after that, and just like let Houston be Houston.
Oh, you
New
saying
York.
I should transition to a New York fan? I'd be lying if I said I hadn't considered that, but I'd feel like a traitor, and I just can't do that. Like
Houston, who?
Okay.
What's on this team?
Okay, come on.
What didn't they lose to Boston twice? Oh my God! No, I'd never be a fan of that team.
First win against Boston a couple weeks ago.
We won against Boston. That's more than you can say
first time.
Right now. And that's improvement. That's an improvement I'm hearing right now.
Okay.
It sounds like Gladiators are getting better against Boston, which is not what it's looking like for Houston.
You're so right. You have all off season to convince me to be a New York fan.
Oh yeah, we'll get there.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead. We've been talking about these games we got coming up this weekend, and we're gonna keep our little tradition going and give out a couple Overwatch League Network awards for this season.
Whoa.
What's up?
Wait, who do you have going into the final play?
The Final Four?
Yeah, the final 4.
Philly Shock, New York Dragons.
I'm gonna be different than you. I'm gonna pick
Washington.
Philly. I'm picking Shock. I'm not gonna pick Washington. I feel like Washington's gonna get counter comped. And I'm gonna pick Shanghai, and I'm gonna put Seoul in there.
I mean,
I think Seoul, if they don't get counter comp, they looked really strong. And so I'm putting Seoul in there because who the hell knows? And I do think Washington has a chance. And I think Washington could also pop off. If it's actually Zarya Hogg, bro, like who knows? But
this has been
it's
unpredictable.
crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff.
But let's give out our Overwatch League Network awards. Let's give them out. We got our first award. We're calling it the Backbreaker Award, and it's going to be for the player who we felt carried the hardest all season long. And Anura, why don't you go ahead? You give out tell me your Backbreaker Award winner first.
So this team was ranked 20th, 19th, 18th, and then they signed this player. Not saying the other team players have not done well, but they signed this player named KSP late into the preseason. And man, this guy's good.
Remember when
this guy is good. He has been absolutely pounding anyone. He's top 3 in most hit scan areas.
Number 1 in final blows all season.
They don't play a comp without him for a reason. I'm not saying anything bad about the rest of the players. I think Shaq's amazing. I think Dreamer, McGravy are actually really competent tank line, and their support line's been surprisingly good. Especially last row, Rain at most times have been really good. But there's a reason why they don't play without KSP. This guy literally does not know how to not pop off. The dude only knows how to click heads. This guy's insane. He's been carrying. I do not see Valiant going as far as they did without this player. At all.
Oh yeah.
They would be mid tier. I mean, some may argue they are mid tier. They'd be big to bottom tier without this.
Okay.
Because they'd have to play Shax, and they'd have to play either KSF or Apply. And I don't think that's as strong as KSP and Shax, or KSP and whoever else. he literally carried this team. And that's really, you have to give it to Packing for finding this player and how no one else gave him a chance,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous.
Okay.
And then he carried his team this far.
Remember,
yeah, let's get to yours.
Let me. Okay, but real quick, let me talk about KSP for a second. You remember at the beginning of the year, we put LA Valiant in our bottom 5 for our rankings, and then they announced the KSP signing after we did the bottom 5 episode, and I said, "Oh yeah, they signed KSP. They might be 18 or 19th instead of 20th." And that might be the wrongest thing I've said on the show because, yeah, you're right. KSP just has been.
I was talking about how dirty he is.
And
first of all, I said KSP and Gig.
And his World Cup performance, I knew that he was going to be good, but I was like, oh, can he really bring back this Valiant team? But this Valiant team wasn't much to bring back because they're pretty freaking good. So, okay, now my backbreaker award. Who else? I couldn't imagine awarding that to anyone other than Decay this year. He has carried hard when he was on Dallas. Their wins that he won, they were because of him. And then when he goes to Washington, now he's carrying them. And it's just like, yeah, Decay, the carry. Decay's the carry. So that would be my backbreaker award. Easy squeezy.
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
So my favorite thing is that when they beat Dallas, it was so the way the playoff started, which after the play-ins, technically called the play-ins, and Washington beat against Dallas, it went from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 12, because that's how low Washington was. And I was like, oh, so basically Decay took back at his 8th spot. The 8th best team this year has been Decay, and it just depends on who he's been on. That's what happened, I mean, and it was Decay.
Right.
Decay carried Dallas to where they were. Sure, Dallas got a few wins, but they got a few losses as well afterwards. And then he went off to Washington, and he made them to where they are now, which they are above 8th. I think they're, how many teams are left? 6? 6 teams are left.
8 teams are left.
No, it's Washington.
Oh, you're right.
6 teams. And you can blame it on the meta or whatever, but I mean, Decay took back that spot. Said, "Hey, Dallas, you don't deserve this. It's ours. It's me. I did this."
Okay. Do you want to move on to our next award?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, next award we're calling the Please Trade Me Back Award. It's for a player who probably wishes they were on the same team they were last year, and you can't give it to McGravy because you know that that's not true. So, who would you award the Please Trade Me Back Award?
Go with you first. I'm still thinking on
Go
this
for
one.
it. I definitely think it's Mecco. We seen him. You could see it on his face when Houston got knocked out by Boston. He was just thinking, man, if I was playing with Mono right now, this would not be happening. Or, man, I really screwed up. Like, could you imagine if Mecco was on? Because in the Houston game against Boston, there was not very many high points, period. But one of the things I did see was Mecco literally kept them from getting completely trampled with some of his deep defense matrix placements. Like, he straight saved people over and over and over again. And now if he was saving people that were as good as the New York team, like, ooh, that would be scary. So, Anura, I might have blabbed enough to give you some time to think. Who do you think is the Please Trade Me Back award would go to?
So, I think there's a certain player that hasn't been. I'm giving it a Surefour.
Surefour? Oh, yeah. Okay.
I think this. First of all, I think is actually like, please let me leave award. But let's be honest. I feel like he wanted to be on a competitive roster. He wanted to be able to play on this competitive roster, and Toronto Defiant was not that roster for him. And sad Toronto Defiant. That actually, I think they looked pretty good in certain metas this year.
They really did.
But they've just fallen flat in most of them. And I feel like he just wants to be able to play. I don't see Surefour coming back. I feel like he feels like he wasted time in Overwatch. I don't think he did. I think that next year he's either going to be traded, gone, and a streamer.
Surefour Linkser. Let's see that.
He's not going to be in Houston. I don't think he'd ever go in Houston. Now, Linkser moving. We're going to talk about that later.
That's
but for now, That's
Okay.
off-season stuff. We're not talking. It's still season. It's still season.
Next
We talked
award.
about Shockwave. That's all we get.
Next award we're going to is the Seventh Man Award. And, that's pretty much like ripping off the Sixth Man Award for basketball type thing. So, do you want to go first? You want me to for your Seventh Man Award?
Go first. Go first.
Okay,
Go first.
I think Seventh Man Award, which last year, definitely not. But this year, Seventh Man, super. Why not? Like, we've seen Smurf start most of the time. He comes in anytime someone needs to swing something around, whether it be the Reinhardt hammer or the Genji blade. Like, he's there to pop in at those kind of times. So I think Super definitely, with his Genji play and with his, like, very, like, sparse Reinhardt play, definitely has earned the Seventh Man Award, in my opinion. Because, it makes sense, dude. What do you think? Who do you got for a Seventh Man Award? I have a feeling it might be a Glad.
So I'm gonna give an honorable mention to Mir, but I think I found someone better because Mir really did well, and I think.
Oh man, did you lose?
And his Zarya is actually insane, but I'm gonna give it to Shax.
Okay.
This man popped off for Valiant, absolutely destroys on any hero they want to put him on, which is I think mostly Tracer. He has a good Sombra. I don't know why they haven't put him in Sombra, but like this guy is really good at the heroes he's good at. And it kind of sucks that it wasn't a Tracer meta this whole time. I'd love to see more KSP Shax, unless he's playing the Gladiators. Don't put Shax in. But overall, I think I like the Valiant. I'm not gonna lie. I think Valiant's good.
You just like the Valiant teams, don't you?
I just want them to lose because I don't want them to be further than the Gladiator. And it's a hard thing. I like a lot of the people on Valiant. I think this is absolutely a successful year for Valiant, no matter any way you look at it. Mm-hmm. And you cannot deny that. And you have to give them the credit they deserve as a team, as an organization, to build this team. I thought Shax and KSF were going to be a really good DPS duo coming in. I said they're going to have a really strong. And then they brought in KSP. And I think KSP definitely outshines Shax because KSP is so good. But easily, if I could play any two DPS on this run, it'd be Shax and KSP. The only reason that Shax doesn't get as much playing time as other players is because he doesn't have a wide range of heroes he can play. But what he plays top tier. 100%. Cannot deny that.
For sure. And you know what? How about this? Throughout this week, I would love it if all of our listeners get on Twitter and at the show, at me, at Anura, and tell us who you think the winners of some of these awards would be. Because I'm sure that there's some players out there that, maybe they deserve some honorable mention, and we'd love for the listeners to shout them out and tell us who you think these awards, if you think we got it wrong, let us know who you think deserves it. But, Anura, I think that's pretty much bringing us close to the close of the show, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to be sure to head on over to your favorite place to listen to the podcast and leave a review, because we're always looking for new ways to improve the show. And we'll read your review we'll read it on the show. So go ahead and do that for us, and we would really appreciate it. Anura, you want to tell everybody about the recall?
Yeah, you can find additional Overwatch content on our weekly website. Every Sunday, we release the weekly that lists the episodes released within the last week. For more information, follow OW Recall on Twitter at OW Recall. And if you'd like to show some additional support to our network of Overwatch shows, consider pledging via Patreon. Tiers just start at $1 a month. More information can be found at www.patreon.com/OWL network. You too can join the likes of our master and above patrons, Daniel Owl, Kasha, Agent Life, and 044 in helping our network grow. And Booker, how can they contact the show?
If you want to send an email, you can send it over to contact@owlnshow.com. We got a new website, which is owlrecall.com. You can find our Twitter at OWLNShow on Twitter. All past episodes of the show are available on youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. You can find our Discord at discord.me/OWLNShow. And on Twitch, we are a Twitch affiliate. We're part of a larger network here at the Overwatch League Network. And you can find it at twitch.tv/OWLNShow. And you can find pretty regular podcast streams airing on Mondays. We got this show at 6 p.m. Pacific time, Overwatch League Network. On Tuesdays, we got Overwatch League by the Numbers at 6 p.m. and you got Heroes Never Die, which airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, which is the Variety Overwatch show. And if you want to contact the host, you can find me on Twitter at BoogerBrains with 2 Z's. And Anura, where can everybody find you?
Before you, dude, Apply just called pizza garbage, and he deleted the tweet.
Do what?
Apply just called pizza garbage, and he deleted the tweet.
Just pizza in general?
So he said, "What?" So basically, it was like, "What food opinions do you have would make people react like people throwing shit at a person?" But he said pizza is overrated garbage, and I disagree. But you can find me on Twitter at AnuraFG, ANURAFG. This is why I hate the Valiant. Here you go. See, I was giving him a lot of praise,
and Valiant, is he?
Apply is on the Valiant. Yes, he is.
Oh.
He's their DPS player. He played Echo once in a game. It was pretty cool.
Huh, I thought that he got traded. Oh well, my bad.
No.
Anyways, so it's easy to forget about somebody who thinks that all pizza is shit. I thought you said Pizza Hut, and I was like, okay.
He said pizza sucks to me directly.
I thought you said Pizza Hut, and I was like, okay, whatever. But you said
wow.
all of it. What is going on, dude?
He said pizza sucks.
You gotta slap some pineapples on that shit. Anyways.
All right, that's a different podcast. We're gonna
tune in next week to find an entire episode where me and Anura discuss pizza and pizza toppings. Y'all have a great week and hope you gain all the SR.